Gotta make tea, so I have a little bit more energy to do stuff. Take that off. Oh man, what a Wednesday! How are you guys doing? Hello, Gray. So today's agenda, basically, I'm going to be answering some questions that I got on YouTube, which actually made for, well, I guess would be nice to answer on stream and make a video of it. Then, work on the bass a little bit. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. Yeah. See, this is why I need tea. I am so tired right now. My brain is just not really functioning at all. Essentially, what I would have liked to have done today is getting clear coats on the base. Now, everything kind of depends on how the scuff sanding goes now. I'm going to do it with 800 just to be on the safe side. And if it goes well and if it looks good enough, then I will move on to clear coats. Whether or not I'll do that on the stream, we'll see. It's a bit of a hassle to kind of set up so that you can actually see something. But we'll see when we get there. Now for something that is very much contested about in this household is some tea and milk. See, for some reason, my significant other seems to think that that is completely disgusting. But if we're being honest, a little bit of milk and tea, that's lovely, that is. Alright, so, into the layer of doom. Oh man. Tea on there. Let's line this up. One of the things that I really need to work on is get some form of tripod for my phone, because as fun as this easel is, it is not meant for holding up cameras. That is not its purpose. So what I'm going to do is now I have my laptop so I can see the chat, and here we are. So essentially what this base has now had is 2 sessions of matte black paint. Not Jack Black, but matte black. I feel like I've made that joke already. And basically looks pretty good. Don't see any scratches left off from sanding. Everything's fairly smooth. But there is one tiny drip right on there at the headstock, or the back of the headstock. So I need to do some scuff sanding to get rid of that. If all things go well, then that means that I can't even see it on the stream. I'll point it with my finger. So right there is a small drip that I need to address. But yeah, if all things go well, and the scuff sanding goes well, I'll be able to move on to clears. If it looks like I'll need more paint, I'll put more paint on. But essentially, what we're gonna do is get out some 800 grit. But yeah, I hope you all are actually well, staying safe. Crazy world out there. Oh man. It's really dark outside as well, so, and bleak, rainy. So that doesn't help my energy levels at all. But one of the things that I am going to start off with, because now I started thinking about format wise, what I'm going to start doing is just to get a little bit more content out onto YouTube. I'm probably going to release the full VOD of the stream that I do onto YouTube straight away on the day, and then I'm going to clip out some parts if I'm answering questions and stuff like that, and make separate, bite-sized videos out of that, because someone might not watch the stream but might want that bit of information that I talked about. So let's see. All right, so this was a very good question that I got on the most latest video that I had, which was new guitar build, wood processing, and fitting the truss rod. I'm just gonna move that to a new window so I can actually see my chat at the same time. So yeah, the question I got was from Frankie Chan. If you checked out me looking at community builds, he actually had a couple of them in there. I really recommend checking that out. But yeah, Frankie says, this is one of those things that I need to think about. Do I join a local makerspace, woodwork club, men's shed group for my planned build and subsequent ones, or make do with what I have? Of course, I can do the build with basic hand tools, power tools that I have, with maybe the purchase of a Shinto saw rasp and one decent plane, and buy lots of clamps, but it'll just take a lot more time. Or do I invest in tools that carry me forward, even though I don't know how this guitar building thing will go? I don't want to spend many hundreds of dollars on spindle sander, etc. that will not end up getting used if I move away from the building. If I move away from building. Maybe this is something that you can bring up in a live stream video. Either path to get started on things, or suggestions on how, based on what I've learned. And it's something that regularly shows up on Reddit. Yeah, it is. I remember like the luthier Reddit posts, a lot of them that I've actually replied to with. I made a video last year where I went over like where to start with guitar building, but the whole thing with that was, hey, now I started thinking how to pronounce your name. Iomar, right? Iomar Guitars? What up? Nice to see you. Just going over a question from Frankie here about how to get started on with guitar building. Basically, yeah. Yeah, so sorry, I had a little moment there. Spaced out. Yeah, last year I made a video of where to start with guitar building, and I've suggested that video to a lot of people who've asked about it. But the whole focus with that video was basically already assuming that you're gonna like get into it and you're just looking at what tools to get for yourself. Now, I had never, at that point at least, I didn't even consider the routes that I've taken when it comes down to things. Because quite honestly, I only started building up my own tools and stuff like that after I left England. Up until that point, I had used what I had and rented time at maker spaces or worked after hours at my school, stuff like that. So thinking about how to best go about it is a very good question. Um, I'd say that if you have the option that if you have a maker space or sort of workshop where you can go and have a couple of hours here and there where it's either you pay monthly or like what I have here is like you pay for the time that you use and you don't have to go there all the time, which is really convenient. I know it's not like that in many other places, but it's really convenient for me because I don't have as many tools as I would like, and there's no way that I can really do routing in an apartment building spare bedroom. So going to the makerspace or hobbyist workshop really helps out in that regard. But if you're just thinking about starting up, maybe building a couple of instruments, but you're not sure how much you're going to be doing it, but you have an interest in it, finding a sort of makerspace or some space where they have tools ready and readily available, and maybe someone who runs the shop and can teach you some tools and tips and tricks, that helps out a good bit. So in that way, you're kind of like dipping your toes into it, so to speak, without having to invest all that much money into it. If it turns out that you build a couple of guitars and you're completely satisfied, then you got a couple of guitars that you're completely satisfied with, and you learned a whole lot. Maybe later on you'll think about pursuing it. But if you really start to make more and more and more guitars and really feel like it's somewhat of a passion for you, then at that point it's probably good to start investing and looking at what kind of tools to start off with. And more so, what can you work with given the space that you have? If you have a garage and you can make noise and you won't get complaints, you can make dust and it won't ruin things like a computer or what have you, then by all means, one of the first things that you should probably get is, well, measuring tools aside, measuring tools are something that you really, really must have. A really good protractor goes a hell of a long way. A meter long steel ruler is also a must. But a good router is something that will get you a long way, and an orbital sander. Those are some things that will take you far. Of course, having rasps and files, saws, the list goes on, but it really depends on what kind of level you're looking at going from. I realize that when it comes down to answering these kind of questions, I keep on going on very convoluted directions. Armor, a drill press. Yeah, sure. You can get by without one if you can afford one, and if you can fit one in your own workshop, then hell yes, that will definitely help out so much, because with a drill press you can even get yourself a sort of like spindle so you can make it into a sander, and then build a jig so you can do spindle sander stuff on your drill press. So basically in that regard you'll get a couple of tools in one. But yeah, other way you can go about without a drill press is just practice with a hand drill. I mean, that's all I have. It's right over here. I don't have a drill press, but I do everything with this, and this goes a long way. My ferrule holes are not straight. Yeah. See, ferrules are a nuisance in that sense. Do you mean the entire length of like a string through, where you're going all the way through, or just the part with the ferrules? Because if you just have the part with the ferrules, you could technically drill it a bit deeper. But yeah, I know what you mean. Drilling out ferrules and ferrule holes and string through holes, that's a real big bummer to do by hand. But it just takes practice. Just the part with the ferrules. All right. Well, what I would suggest for next time around, I mean, technically you could plug the holes up and try again, but what I would suggest is having a similar piece of like scrap wood, which is about the same dimensions of the area that you're drilling into. So if you're doing the string through the entire thing by hand, have a block of wood that is roughly the same wood that you're using for the body and roughly the same thickness, and then do test holes. So drill some test holes, do halfway from one side and halfway from the other side. That usually helps out quite a bit. Smaller drill bits have a tendency to wander, but also having really good drill bits helps out a hell of a lot. So if your drill bits aren't, the sharpest, they'll also wander quite a bit. A lot of things go into it, but yeah, practice is basically what it boils down to. I feel like the question of where to start with guitar building was not answered to the best of my abilities, I don't think. Or I feel like I went on like 50 different tangents and I lost my way. But it is why I need tea. Like, I remember I used to do these live streams. I used to do them on Sundays. Why am I making this hard for myself? I used to do them on Sundays, which is definitely the bad idea because, as probably with anyone, your brain doesn't really function on Sundays all that well. Tried Mondays. Mondays definitely not a good idea. Wednesdays is a good mid-ground, but still trying to do it after work is a little bit of a pain. Alright, so moving onwards. But I should say that if anyone does have any questions that they want to kind of like get answers to in videos and whatnot, then feel free to ask on my YouTube videos, and I will answer either in the comments or is it frozen? Looks like this is frozen. All right. If I refresh that page. But yeah, feel free to ask in the comments to my videos, and I will answer either in the comments or I'll answer in a live stream or a video. I am. This is mostly flat already, so I'm being very careful not to take off excess material in that. I don't know what's up with my internet lately. For the past 2 days, it just hasn't been working. So I need to look into that again. It's one of the issues I keep on running into, it seems. And that's not cool, because I need the internet for a good lot of things. I just hope that the stream is still working. Well, my phone at least, it shows that it's working, so hopefully it is. But yeah, otherwise, I've now had my PC for 2 weeks on Friday, I'm yet to do anything on it. I haven't had the time. Basically, I got everything together. I set everything up. I set up the network. Now I today hopefully set up the Wi-Fi on it, and then I can start transferring all the files over from the hard drives that I have. Hopefully I can start using the PC soon, which means that the sooner I start using the PC, the sooner I can edit more videos easily, and also the sooner I can make the streaming content so much better than what it has been since I started doing this. Yeah, essentially what I'm aiming for with the scuff sanding right now is just that, scuffing up the surface enough for hopefully clear coat to stick and not going through anywhere, because I would not want to do another session of paint. Just because that would be a bummer. Alright, so looks like my internet kind of crapped out. Whether or not the stream's still going, that much I don't know. See, this is also something that I need to really work out. Alright. I'm just checking the chat. Oh, man. There's always something. It can never be that easy to just plug in and start streaming. Why does there always have to be some sort of technical difficulties? Need to keep on wiping away all the excess water off of here. Everything still looks good. I'm not going through any corners or edges. No drip marks. That looks fine. But yeah, it's really funny because essentially this, what I'm doing right now, this was essentially half of my job in England at Crimson. Just between the spray booth and my workbench on sanding things down, or wet sanding. Save for the fact that over there I didn't need to spray in a balcony. I got the spray in a spray booth. Condition of the spray booth was this and that every now and then, but that's beside the point. Good. Come on, internet, work with me here. Okay. Worst case scenario, we'll just have to do front camera so I can see you guys. All right, I'm going to change the camera so I can answer Iomar's question here. Oh, that probably sounds bad. All right. So the question was, soon I will start my first multiscale. What do you recommend? What angle should I use? Do you mean the angle of the fan of the frets, or do you mean the angle of the headstock? If you mean the angle of, or the actual fan of the frets, I wouldn't do more than an inch of difference. So for instance, if you have, frets. I guess the really max, now that I think about it, is I would go from like 25.5 to 27. So that's an inch and a half. I wouldn't go anywhere more than that, because then the fan already starts to be very drastic and it starts maybe feeling a little less comfortable to play. But 1 inch is probably the thing I'd go for personally. One of the things that really factors into that is it depends on what tuning you're looking at playing. Is it a 6 string? Is it a 7 string, 8 string, or more? And what tuning and what string gauge you're kind of looking at. Basically, if you have a 6 string, let's say that you're going to do some drop tune stuff, but you're probably not going to go anywhere like lower than C, like a drop C or something like that. I'd just say 25.5 to 26.5, more than enough. Going like baritone or drop A, going 26.5 to 27, more than enough. Fix the camera angle just a little bit, because now there's so much space here. Six, drop C. All right. Yeah, basically. I'm really sorry, this is probably making a lot of noise right now. drop C 6-string multiscale. Depends. There's kind of the thing of like, what do you actually need for it to function with? Because the idea is that you have basically equal tension through the strings. So even going with 25.5 on the bass side could be enough, and you can do a very slight fan, so you could have like 24.75 on the treble side, which would then give you basically like Gibson to Strat kind of fan, or maybe the 25.5 to 26.5 would actually not be too bad for you. Kind of depends. Of course, the longer the scale is on the bass side, that means the more tension that you'll actually have on that. Depending. God, I keep on going back and forth, but depending on the gauge of string that you have, if you have a fairly let's see. If you have a short scale or shorter scale but thicker gauge, then it's going to be pretty floppy. So that will require that you have a longer scale length for it to be tensioned up properly. But if you have a longer scale length and you have a rather thin gauge, then you won't need that much, and it'll actually maybe be a bit too tense on a longer scale. Like personally, what I have on my guitars, or well, production models, I use the NYXL what are they, 10s or 11s, I can't remember. But if I go to like a 56 for the lowest on a 6-string, 25.5 feels pretty comfortable for me, but yeah. But I'm used to, like, on my personal guitars, like I'm used to having like open A sharp or drop A, and using 56 on that. And it's been pretty floppy, not that great. Oh, looky look. My laptop is refreshing the page. I've done that part. So far, it actually looks pretty promising that we could go and do clear coat today. The thing that really makes spraying at this time of the year challenging for me is if it's too cold, I can't really spray. Or I can, of course, but the quality of the spraying will be not up to my own standards. And I might face issues with cracking, which at this stage would be very tiresome. So essentially I'm just waiting for the weather to be that little bit warmer. But this is more or less on a deadline. It is and it isn't. It's on a deadline in the sense where it's like, as soon as I get this done, I can move on to other builds that I have waiting, but I can't move on to those other builds until I finish working on this. Fortunately though, it's starting to get to the last stages. Very important thing to keep in mind when you're getting to the last final stages of any build, you will undoubtedly feel like you want to rush to just kind of see it finished, because you get excited about the fact of like, hey, you're gonna have a finished instrument soon. Take a step back. If you recognize that you're doing that, take a step back and let calmer heads prevail. Because if you're going to rush through the final 10%, you're more than likely going to make some mistakes. And as they always say, the last 10% is the first 90% that the customer sees or the player sees. So if you don't do your finishing work properly, it can already diminish the quality of your instrument by a lot. So concentrate on the very last part and do it properly. Might be tedious, might be hard, challenging, but practice makes perfect. And just as long as you keep your wits about you, you'll be fine. Yeah, rushing is the worst. And this isn't me coming from a sort of like, I never rushed, so I never made mistakes. I used to get caught up on rushing the final part so much. I have made so many mistakes in that regard, so believe me, I know what it's like. And every single time that I did that, I have regretted it. But it's how we learn. I always say that I've never met a luthier who hasn't made a single mistake in a build. And honestly, I think the mark of a good luthier is through their mistakes and how they have learned from those mistakes. Because if you don't make mistakes, and or if you say that you've never made mistakes, more than likely you have, you just haven't noticed it, which means that there might be things that you're kind of saying, well, that's good enough, instead of trying to push yourself and challenge yourself to learn to better your skills. It's always good to be critical of your work, not too critical in the sense of getting bummed out and downright depressed about your work, but critical enough to recognize that that's an issue I need to fix. And how do I fix it? How did I end up making that mistake? Once you have answers to those, then the next instrument that you build will be that much better. It's always a learning process. I know people who have done this for decades and are still learning new skills, new ways of doing things. I've only been, building guitars up to I want to say professional level, but I'm building things in my bedroom, my spare bedroom. So that diminishes that a little bit. But considering the training I have and considering the amount of guitars that I've worked on, I can say that I work to a professional standard in that regard. So I've been working to a professional standard in guitar building for, I want to say 5 years now, and I know for a fact that there is so much for me to learn. And with every single project, I always learn something new, which is part of the reason why I love making guitars. I love learning new skills, and I love, challenging myself when it comes to stuff like this. So. All right. Now, usually with scuff sanding, I like to do it with 600 grit, but now when I'm basically trying to take away as little material as possible so that I can move on to clear coats, because I have a good even layer, I am using 800. All right, things look pretty good. Moving on to getting rid of that little blemish, or drip mark, I should say. If I can get rid of that without going through, then things are looking good. One of the things that this base is also going to get is still a little more, is because it's an LTD base. Of course, I'm not gonna, now that I've repainted it, of course, I'm not gonna put my own brand on it. But I have sanded away and covered up the old LTD logo. So what I am gonna do is use some laminated mother of pearl with sticky back side that I ordered on mistake, and use that to cut out a new logo. So basically stuff that looks like this. It's like paper thin, it's got a sticky back on it. I thought I was ordering a sheet of some thicker mother of pearl stock. Turns out I wasn't, but now I have a use for it. Oops, sorry. So that should look pretty good. Tell you what, guys, we got rid of that nasty drip. So I think that we might be able to put clear coats on this next instead of paint, which means that I am spraying water on my table. Which means that this is approaching some really cool developments next. All right. Where I get to put in the headstock inlay. And okay, let's go. I get to put in the headstock inlay. Well, it's not really an inlay. Onlay. Onlay! I get to put the logo on here. Well, I first need to cut it out, make sure it's perfect. Put it on here. Get it seated so that it's underneath layers of clear, which will also help keep it in place a bit better. But also, next up will be basically covering up the fretboard or masking it up. All right, the front. Now, if I don't screw this up, we'll be good to move on to the next stage. That looks good. That looks good. Want to become famous? Buy followers, primes, and viewers. Nope, not gonna do that. Spam. I need to go and delete that comment. Flag that. Somebody else want to flag that if you're watching? Or is that something that you can do? I don't know how Twitch works yet. can't delete it. Okay, yeah, so I'll just have to do it. This is another one of those things where it's like, this is why I have my laptop right there, so I would be able to do that on the go or on the fly. But seriously, this is what I've been staring at. I should have my chat here, but I'm just seeing a blank screen. Main thing is that the stream is going. Now, I notice a lot of people online, they're always saying that you shouldn't wet sand with water because you're going to ruin your guitar. Not going to ruin your instrument, seriously. I always bring this up every single time I do it because you're applying so little moisture on there. You're already protected. You have paint or clear coat or whatnot. Putting water on there, sanding with it, and then rubbing it all away, you're not going to be putting moisture into the instrument and destroy it. If you're putting that much moisture in, then you've clearly done something wrong, or your wood wasn't dry enough to begin with. Just saying. Cool. Now, the really good thing about doing a mat for me is that I don't need to go through the arduous process of polishing, going through different grits of paper. I can just basically, if I can spray properly, I can leave it as it comes out of the spray can. Getting black on my face. Which means that I just have to do the actual spraying process carefully enough so I don't screw it up. Do I import parts for my guitar? Did I read that correctly? Yeah. Do I import parts for my guitars? Do you mean like hardware and stuff like that? Yes, I do. Basically, the woods I buy locally, and in general, I aim to, as much as possible, I aim to use domestic woods instead of really ordering from abroad. But the shops that I have at my disposal for buying actual hardware, pickups, and stuff like that, they're so and so with what they have, and I have very specific brands that I like to use. For instance, and I have trade accounts with suppliers, so I might as well use those trade accounts. Now things get a bit trickier with Brexit and everything else. So me ordering bridges from Granger is a little more costly and going through taxes and stuff like that. It's annoying, but I really love the bridges, so I'm going to keep on using them, at least for the time being. And honestly, I like using Granger hardtail bridges because everybody else uses hip shot, and while they might be excellent bridges, it's like, why would I get something that everybody else already uses? I want to use something different, which I like, and I really like the Granger parts, so I'll keep on using those. For tuners, most of the time I will go for Schaller, so they're from Germany and in the EU, have a trade account, so it's easy. Pickups, it'll depend, but currently ordering pickups through Tommen, or then going to some of the local music shops here. And then I have for other part suppliers and stuff like that, then those are domestic for smaller things like fret wire and electronics wiring. Those things I buy domestically in Finland. All right. So, by the looks of it, we're pretty good. Gonna have to do one more check before I take any of the masking off and re-mask up the fretboard. Because doing clear coats, I want to have the edge of the fretboard as well clear coated. So, final checks. Always good to check up against a light. If you have natural light, then always aim to do it for natural light, but it's really, really freaking dark outside, so natural light's not going to help me. Here I import everything. I use Hipshot too. Bring Schaller is very expensive. What is the brand you named on the bridges? Yeah, so of course it depends because you're closer to Hipshot than I am, so I'm pretty sure that then shipping costs and everything else like that kind of equals out a little bit more. I have nothing against Hipshot. Whatever I think I've tried one so far. I really love the stuff, but for me personally, it's just way too expensive to try and like import it all the way over. Oh, I should also say for importing, I'm using Luminlay, and that's for a bar that small of Luminlay stuff for a couple of guitars is very expensive because it comes from Japan, but nobody else does Luminlay like they do. Gotta get the original. Yeah, I can imagine Schaller is expensive if you're ordering straight through. You can, as a luthier, they're actually pretty good with that. You can register a trade account on their website. so you actually get trade price for it, but you'd probably still have to pay for taxes when it actually arrives. Though Schaller is a pretty big company, so I would imagine that you will be able to get those in music shops or other distributors, probably even in the US. I would say go check out the listed suppliers for Schaller. I'm pretty sure you'll be able to find something a bit closer to you to cut down the prices for import. The bridges I use. So Granger, I'm going to show you. Just a sec. Dig one out for you. There you go. So Granger, and basically this is the bridge in question. I really love this. It's very sturdy, feels very good. Manufactured in Great Britain by Granger Guitar Parts, and you can actually have it either string through or top mounted. And I always like to have top mount stuff, so it was actually very nice that using these. And you can get them in chrome, gold, nickel, and black. So I'm going to be using these at least for the first batch of guitars that I have. Then for the 7-string T-type that I'm working on, I got one that's nice and chrome. So that's, well, I'm not going to bother to dig it out. It's underneath a bunch of stuff right there. Yeah, so. Yeah, I think it's very cool that they actually have both options. And trying to find something like that is oddly difficult. I also managed to, for the Celeste, I have a WD Music Products bridge. So a gold one, and it's got both top mount and string through. I like to have the option just in case if I ever decide to do string through stuff. But for the time being, I have spec'd my guitars out to be top mounted. Of course, I can do string through if somebody were to ask me to do that. I've done a fair few of those already in the past. But as you mentioned, or as we talked about earlier, it's always somewhat of a hassle. Yeah. Let's unmask and remask the fretboard. Now, what I've done here is I've used pinstriping tape on the very edge of the fretboard, and I've put masking tape over on top of that, so when I peel away the masking tape, I'm not potentially ruining the edge of the paint. This kind of keeps it a bit safer from chipping. Always so satisfying peeling tape. go. Now to really carefully peel away the pinstripe. Mostly because I don't want to ruin the edge of my black paint here. Just taking my time. Ah, there we go. This thing's gonna look like a beast once it's finished. Here, let me show you. So, we have the inlays there, and the matte black finish, ebony board, and brass inlay, brass frets, brass tube side dots as well. And when this gets strung up, it's going to be strung up with some black strings. So it's almost as if there's a theme for the color. Might want to ever so slightly break that sharp edge. Dog got excited now. Thank you, IRMR. I'm actually pretty satisfied with how it's looking so far. I can't wait to see what it looks like once I actually put on the clear coat. I've now been going for about an hour, and seeing as we got to this stage, I don't think I'm actually going to be doing any spraying for the stream. And I do want to get this masked up, but I want to take a picture of it for the client first. So I'm going to put this back to hang up for now, and then end the stream here. So this is now going to go up onto YouTube. Not the base, but the stream. Once I finish this going up on YouTube, then I'm probably going to pick out a couple of highlights where I answered some of the questions. IMR, also thank you for the excellent questions you've had on stream today. It really helps out. Yeah, I'm gonna put those out at some point, maybe. See if I want to kind of have a bit more content coming through weekly. Little bit of a shame that the stream had technical difficulties, but as I've learned, that's kind of what streaming's all about, having technical issues all the time. And no problem, seriously. Any questions, and that's to any viewers watching this. If you have any questions at all, feel free to comment on my videos, ask questions, and I will answer them either on stream or more than likely answer them on comments, and I might bring them up on stream as well. So keep the comments coming, keep the questions coming, and I will see all of you next time, which will be this Sunday for a monthly update video. And then next Wednesday for a new stream. But yeah, I'm gonna go for now, and thank you for watching. Bye bye.